Welcome to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.
What exactly is a psychic medium? How do they actually do what they do? How do you tell a real one, quote-unquote, from a fake?
Hey there, and welcome to the 566th edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. Hi, I'm Ben, and those mind-blowing questions came from my co-host and partner in the paranormal, my dad. And this evening, we welcome a new guest and a local favorite son on a subject we rarely talk about. And we welcome your calls this evening. Numbers to call, as soon as I can speak normally, 800-449-1240, or that's from anywhere in the U.S. or Canada, or 401-766-1240, that's locally. However, this will be an interview only, and we are not doing any on-air readings. I repeat, no on-air readings. You are welcome to call with questions for our guest on the nature of what he does.
Roland Comtois is an internationally known psychic medium, channeler, and speaker, and the best-selling author of And Then There Was Heaven, A Journey of Hope and Love, and 16 Minutes, When One Breath Ends, Another Begins. He considers it his mission to, quote, bring absolute acceptance and understanding of everlasting life and the existence of heaven to as many people as possible, unquote. What's more, he is a native son from right here in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, where our studio is located. At the age of 10, Roland recalls a visit from his departed grandmother, and a, quote, trio of angels soon after she passed away presented him with his life's calling. From that day forward, intuitive visions, angelic visits, and heavenly encounters became everyday occurrences for Roland, encouraging him to use his gift of healing for the benefit of others, unquote. Roland is a gerontology nurse by profession. His website is rolandcomtois.net, Roland, COMTOIS.net. Anybody from Woonsocket, self-respecting Woonsocketer, knows how to pronounce these French names.
But if you're not French, then too bad. So, Roland Comtois, welcome to Behind the Paranormal.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you guys.
So let's start this off with what we like to start with as... Wow, I can't even remember her name. Julie Andrews once said, a good place to start is at the very beginning. So what exactly is a psychic medium, and is that what you do?
Well, I think that a psychic medium is somebody who communicates or connects us to our loved ones, or reminds us, actually, that love is everlasting through the experience of our connections, and I talk about that, and I share those stories with the people that I meet. I think there's less mystery in it, really. Love is everlasting, and that's what I talk about.
Okay. What is channeling? One hears that.
Well, it's going into
it's
going into that quiet space within yourself and feeling and hearing and experiencing the energy, the messages, the stories, and telling those stories to the people that you meet. So it's going into that zone, that quiet space. I don't think that you have to be anybody special to go into the zone. I think that anybody who prays, meditates, sits quietly, finds peace sitting outside, goes into some quiet zone. That zone, in that quietness, opens the opportunity to get a message or feel the energy.
I used to laugh at that.
Yes.
But then in the 1970s, it kind of started happening to me.
Yes.
And this is not something we usually talk about on the show. We usually deal with other aspects of the paranormal because, as I mentioned before we went on the air, we rarely have psychic mediums on the show because they all say the same things and they all seem stuck in the 19th century, okay? But present company accepted, I'm sure. But there are certain terms that kind of drive us crazy. People throw them around, and they know. I think you have to understand your terms as much as you can, because language really isn't good enough, but you have to kind of get to it. What do you mean by the soul?
This part of me that defines who I am. I'm not defined by my physical body. I'm not defined by the way I speak. I'm defined by something inside me, this part that lives inside of me. I think there's more to the story than what we see right here in this physical experience. I think there's more, and that's what I mean by the soul.
But does that diminish the physical experience?
It doesn't diminish it. It can enhance and complement and work together to create the experience. I'm not on a mission to tell people that, truly, I'm not on a mission to talk to the dead. I'm on a mission to talk to the living so that you have a chance to work things out, right? To live the best life that you can live.
Okay. And we don't now. You can respond to this as you wish, but another thing that drives me crazy, and I don't want to speak for Ben, but is one gets the impression when reading and we get buried in books here.
Yes.
The publishers want us to have the authors on, and half of them I wouldn't use as paperweights. Especially speaking as a professional editor. They're just not well written. But there seem to be certain assumptions. Okay, one of them seems to be in many cases that as soon as somebody dies, they become like this super being. That just can manipulate time and space and can help your family and do all this stuff.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, I don't agree with that. I don't think we die and we go somewhere. Mm-hmm. I think there's a process. Just like life is a process. I think there's an experience that happens after we pass away, but I don't believe that we just pop up into a cloud, we're sitting up in some special place. Mm-hmm. I think there's an evolution of some kind, that same kind of evolution that exists here in the physical plane.
So when someone, I don't believe in death either.
Right.
At all. I mean, mainly because of what quantum physics has done to the whole idea. Is death so-called, or as we call it, it's an ancient theological term, translation. When you translate to one of the perhaps millions of other lives you're living parallel to what you're doing, is it the same for everybody, or is it a personal, unique experience?
I think it's a unique experience. How can it be the same? We don't, how can it possibly be the same? I think there's a unique experience that happens at the moment of death, and only when we have that actual experience will we really be able to identify or talk about it or experience it. How can we say that it's one thing or another until we have the experience?
You'll probably get a kick out of this. Because I spent 10 years in the seminary, right?
Oh.
And I went to a funeral not too many years ago at a Roman Catholic church in Rhode Island here. And it was the wife of a popular official. Everybody knew her, a lovely lady. And the priest said, well, now she's playing golf without the greens fees. And she can go to the clubhouse and eat all the cake and ice cream she wants without getting fat. So I'm there kind of looking around. And at the end, I shook hands with him as we were leaving the church. And I said, that is the most bizarre eschatology I've ever heard in my life. Eschatology being the last things. But then I thought, if all this stuff we talk, because we base all our work on parallel world theory that some physicists have pretty much embraced, and some of whom have even been on the air and told us that they agree with us. Now, however it may work. But thinking about that, parallel lives, she probably is on some golf course doing that, and maybe in a world where the physical laws are different, because supposedly they're not the same from world to world, if this is true.
Yes.
So, I don't know.
Who knows until we have the experience, though. I mean, I can tell you the experience from my perspective of what I've seen, what I've felt, what I've heard from people, how I see it when I'm in that space somewhere, and it's different. It's not the same for everybody, and I just can't believe that when we die, we just puff up into this place that's spectacular and beautiful. I think something happens, and that part will be interesting to discover when I finally take that journey. Well,
in the multiverse perspective, as we call it, we're all having that experience all the time, somewhere or somewhen, And it has interesting implications for reincarnation, because Einstein essentially proved, and his successors have essentially proven, that time does not exist in a linear sense. It doesn't go past the future. It's all simultaneous.
Yes.
Which I suppose makes it 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Right.
But in your experience, who are you talking to? How does it work?
Well, look, when there's an audience of 50, 60, 800 people in front of me, they want to talk to their loved ones, and their mission is to have some peace about their loss or grief. My mission is just to get them to be peaceful about what they're going through in that precise moment, their pain, their loss, their suffering. And I present to them a story that I hear, a story that I feel, a story that I sense. They then have to make their decision if they think that experience is a real experience. Is that guy really hearing that story? Is that guy really feeling that energy? And how is it that experience is happening? So something happens there that allows that story to come forward, and that story then is presented to that person in a way that allows them to have a moment of peace in their grief, or their sorrow, or their regret, or their disappointment.
Yeah. One of the questions that's always arisen for me, I don't know about you, Ben, is suppose the quote-unquote loved one was an abusive jerk.
Yes.
I mean, do you feel that you bring peace to people who've had that problem too?
I walked into a room in Katona, New York, and a woman stood up and said, "Don't channel my mother." You know, she had it with this big, loud, and boisterous voice because she said her mother hated her and she didn't want to have any conversation about her. By the time that we were done this 2-hour experience, she was crying. There was a sense of relief in her because something happened. Whatever the words were that came, whatever I said to her, she had a moment of peace and said, okay, I can live my life now. The whole point for me is maybe we should just live this life and live it the best way that we can, love the best way that we can, and maybe get a message to get us through whatever it is that we're experiencing.
One of the, maybe this is a Connecticut expression. You live in Connecticut now, but the term bugbear sometimes comes. It sounds strange, but my mother would say, "Oh, that's a real bugbear." No, it's a problem, right? Nobody knows what I'm talking about.
I've never heard that.
I was just going to say the same. I never heard of it either.
Never.
Well, see, today you both learned something.
Yes, I'm going to write it. I'm going to make notes.
Yes. So the bugbear, so to speak, here is. How do you know where this information is coming from? And if you looked at our website, you know our work involves a lot of negative, what folklore calls demons and stuff.
Yes.
Parasites, as we call them. Simply life forms that one of the tactics is, you know, that they apparently go from world to world or reach into several at a time. I've seen them doing that. And will feed off people's negative energy. I can't put any more scientific finger on it than that. But there are a lot of cases where I'll go in, or have gone in, and say, you know, they think this is Uncle Chuck.
Yes.
And they say, because they want to believe it's Uncle Chuck.
You're right.
And I'll say, I don't believe you're Uncle Chuck. Everything changes. You know, and you can bring out the actual nature of it. Not that they always want to, but that sort of thing. How do you know where the information is coming from and it's not some parasite?
Well, I have to tell you that I've spent my whole life experiencing what that feeling is when the energy of that message is loving, kind, compassion. I feel something inside.
Yeah.
I trust that feeling. Now, I've had the same feelings that you're referring to. I've been in places where the energy was unsettled and there was a restlessness or something. But when I'm in that space with someone and I'm in that quiet space that I keep going back to, I feel this loving kindness. I feel a sense of ease in my body. I feel a sense of peace in my body. And in that place, I feel the love come. Mm-hmm. And that seems stronger to me. It feels much more powerful than those other things you're talking about.
Yeah. If I hadn't felt the same thing myself, I'd be critical. But I can't because, you know, I have experienced the same thing many times.
Explain love to me. As if someone who's never heard of love in my life.
Well, here's how I can explain it to you. That love, that feeling when I take my 23-year-old daughter and I embrace her, is there's a sense of completion between my daughter and I, this beautiful energy that exists between us. When I'm in that space, nothing exists but the energy of love between the two of us. There's something that happens. It's that feeling that you get inside when everything seems to be perfect and in order and right and sound and strong. That's what it is to me. It's not an airy-fairy kind of feeling. It's that just you're knowing you're in the right place. It's the right experience. And that's what I feel when I embrace her. I don't know if that answers your question. I mean, but that's how I can articulate the feeling that I get or how I can describe what love is.
No, well, it's interesting. As people that use a lot of words, because the English language has a lot of words, most of the time we use words like energy or frequency and stuff without saying what they mean.
Yeah.
Hence the whole idea of terms that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's good to know what we're talking about. I mean, you say love, everyone has different definitions of the word love. It's a very hard human emotion, state of being to pin down in and of itself. That's why I asked. And
it's hard to explain. I mean, how do I really get that word out and using this English language that we have, other than my being able to express it to you in a way that in a certain moment in my life where I truly feel it so profoundly and so deeply, it's when I'm in that embrace with someone, or I'm looking in the eyes of someone and I feel the connectedness of something. Something happens there that allows that energy to exist.
Well, it's funny. English only has one word for love. Love.
Yes.
Right? Greek has 5 that I know of. for different kinds of love. And agape, of course, being the selfless love that really is love. It's funny, I was a weird kid. I used to watch Star Trek, and I'd argue with Mr. Spock. I said, "You dope, it's not an emotion, it's a state of being," you know? And it is, I think, you know. But I think you're describing that as well. Well, another thing that kind of bothers us, too, is the physical, doesn't bother us, but we note the physicality of many of the phenomena in
mostly
paranormal.
we like to fight the idea of dualism.
Okay. We have problems with Descartes.
Yeah.
All right. So the philosopher, in case anybody doesn't know who he is, kind of ruined Western thinking, in our opinion.
for about 500 years.
Yeah, exactly. So in other words, I'll often, from our viewpoint, say paranormal investigators say, we have the issue of how come you see ghosts sometimes wearing clothes or driving cars, or you see ghosts, quote unquote, of buildings or whole towns. You know, this has all happened. You know, phantom places. And when we were talking before we went on there about the case in Connecticut,
yes,
where we went in and all these things are happening all around us. These are very physical. Think farm implements. Were there ghosts of oxen? We heard, you know, and wooden wheels and all this stuff. And we have a caller, so we'll hold that thought, as they say. Yeah, and we got to plug in our headsets here, so just bear with us. But that's one of the issues, is the physical nature of so many of these things. All right, and we have Bill from Franklin on the line. Wait for it. All right. We have Bill from Franklin on the line. Bill, how are you?
Okay.
Good. Welcome to the show.
Okay.
You have a question for Roland?
I got some feelings I've never had before. I have this new friend, and she likes everything I like, and we get along so fantastically well. And
okay, could you start again, Bill? We had a little bit of audio trouble here.
I met this new friend, and we both like the same things. We look at each other's photographs, and we like the same photographs, and I get this like warm and happy feeling when I'm around her, and even when she's not here. And I've never felt that way before. Because I've never had a female friend who likes the same things I like either.
You know, I think instead of trying to figure out why or where it comes from, maybe just experience it for what it is, and not really try to investigate why it's happening. You know, just really enjoy it and have that experience.
I love it. I never felt this way, and I love it, and I can't wait to see her every week.
That's a great thing.
Yeah, it's good.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
And she's a minister.
All right. Well, there you go.
I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
I think it's just you should just be present for that experience.
But I've gone through losing my sister a few months ago, and this is the total opposite feeling now. You know.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean about your sister, not about
that's
the
tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's tough.
So I went from being down in the dumps to being extremely happy right now.
Well, that's good. I think you
great.
should just be in the present moment and have that experience. That's a great thing, Bill.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, thanks for the call, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
I'll give our numbers again, which I always forget to do. 401-766-1240 in the local area, Northern Rhode Island, Southeastern Mass. And anywhere in the U.S. or Canada, 800-449-1240. The trouble is, Roland, a lot of people listen to us later on podcasts. You know, or they live in New Zealand or someplace. They can't just... Anyway.
They could attempt to, I guess.
I suppose, well, they could try. They didn't care about the phone bill. Or use Skype. Anyway, how does psychic power actually work? Now, we've talked about multiple worlds and stuff.
Sure. How does psychic power work? Well, first, can I address something about the physical?
Sure.
Yeah, because you mentioned something about the physicality. You know, sometimes when I'm with someone and I'm giving them a message about their loved one, the image of them is presented to me in a way that is familiar to them. And I think that happens so that person who's receiving the message can truly believe that everything is okay with their loved one. I think that's why it comes across in a physical way. Now, I can't give you the idea if it's happening on many levels or many dimensions, but when I'm there and I'm seeing someone as I'm seeing them and presenting that information to that person, they're really coming into the idea that, well, maybe they live on. Maybe we do carry on. Maybe we do move forward in some way. You know, so that's why I think the physical experience of how they looked, how they sounded, what they had on comes into play. Mm-hmm. You know, that I just wanted to share that with you.
Okay. Well, that's one of the things that helped us or nudged us into this multiverse idea with perfectly physical parallel worlds is that would explain why you have, maybe we're wrong.
Yeah.
But a lot of physicists say, well, that's apparently the case. So whatever it is, I mean, that I think would kind of explain it.
I mean, with this everything is moving. Everything is moving so quickly, and for us to stay in this present moment, to really hear whatever it is that's happening around us, I think it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to do that. And Bill is a perfect example of just enjoying that experience and being in that experience for what it means in this moment.
Well, that's a deep spiritual principle too, is
to
live for the moment.
Yes.
As you see, act as problems arise. Judge from there, that kind of thing, and don't worry. Kind of let it go.
Yeah.
Among the paradoxes of the spiritual life and or the multiverse, of course, is that.
Oh, we spend a lot of time asking those questions. Where did it come from? Why is it there? And then we miss the whole opportunity of really celebrating what that moment is all about.
Mm-hmm.
And for him, there's a little bit of happiness in a time that is so overwhelming.
Ben, did you have any? I'm excited here, so I'm going.
I know you're excited. I'm thinking.
Okay. What is? People refer to the other side. And we've been talking about this. I always say, well, the other side of what, or which other side? And one of the things. I mean, do you ever get to the point where you quote send people to the light? But you sound like you're talking more to the people who are here.
As a nurse, I've been in many situations where my patients were dying, and I was there when they passed away, and I had a need to just be with their soul, not only their physical body, but just to be there for them. Mm-hmm. Can I tell you a little story about this?
Yeah.
I had a patient, and her name was Anne, and she was 90-something years old. She had Alzheimer's disease, and every family member that she had ever loved had all passed on before her. So we became her family, and we were there with her, we were comforting her, and one day I walked past her room, and I had a feeling I needed to get in there to talk to her. I had to sit with her. I went in there, I talked with her, and I realized that she wasn't looking well, so I took my stethoscope, I placed it on her heart, and her heart rate was 140 beats a minute. And I knew that something was changing. She was 90-something years old. She didn't look right. I called the doctor, and the doctor said, well, it's her time. We just have to support her, take care of her physically, and do whatever you need to do. So I went back into the room, and I put my stethoscope back against her heart, and now her heart rate was 30. And I heard it go to 20, and I called my staff in, and I said, I think we need to just be with her right now. I think we just need to be present for her and hold her hand and tell her everything is going to be okay. And we did that, and I put my stethoscope there, and I heard her heart rate go from 5 to 4 to 3 to 1, and she was gone. Her physical body ceased. And at that moment, I had this kind of rush of what felt like energy. I don't know what other word to give it. I know you guys talk about using these words over and over and over again, but there was this kind of whoosh of energy just passing through me, and in my mind, I had an instant feeling that she was okay. It was almost a sense of things okay, that we took care of her. It was loving and comforting. And at that moment when we were holding her and giving her all that support, when she passed, I had this very strong sense in me that she was okay. I didn't argue with that sense. I didn't get into a debate where it came from. I didn't try to sit there and figure out why was that happening. I just felt something, and I sat with that feeling, and in my mind, I had this sense that she was free. I had this very beautiful feeling that happened inside, and I didn't argue with it, Mm-hmm. I just felt it. I just experienced it for what it was in that moment.
That's just like when I was with my mother.
Yes.
Now she translated. It was in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. I got a call and I went to the hospital, but still the same feeling, So I really hear you there, Roland. On
it. To me, it's an important feeling. It's an important thing to talk about.
Yeah, it is. Thought of your question yet, Ben? Guess not. All right. All right. The interesting thing. I'll tell you briefly. People don't want to hear from me. They want to hear from you. But just very briefly. Your publicist in San Diego is a dear friend of ours, and she's probably listening right now, or she'll be listening to the podcast anyway. And wonderful cook. If you ever have a chance to get out there, make sure she makes ravioli for you. But she was my publicist for quite a few years, actually. And she didn't quite know what to do with me because we're a little odd. We don't really fit the round peg in the square hole or whatever. And she thought I should try my hand as a psychic, all right? And I was not entirely comfortable with that, but she talked me into it. When I tried it, and I do not claim to do anything you do. When I tried it, it was like the most disturbingly intimate experience because I approached it from my multiverse point of view. I didn't think I was reading anything. I became that person where I was that person in some other part of the multiverse because it's everything. All possibilities are out there.
Yes,
and you're me, and in a way we kind of were united anyway. But you get the picture.
Yes.
I couldn't stand it. I had all their fears. I had all their imagination. I had all their. It was awful.
I understand that. I understand that totally because I have had those experiences where, it feels like you become them almost. There's no separation between you at all.
Yep.
And I'm there feeling what they felt and experiencing what they see, and it sometimes can be a little bit overwhelming, and learning how to do that takes some time.
Exactly.
And work it out takes some time.
Well, on that cheerful note, we're going to take our break at the bottom of the hour here. You're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno on WOON 1240 in New England's beautiful but rainy Blackstone River Valley with our wonderful guest, Roland Comtois. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is the Moose Man.
And I'm the Beetle Man. Join us for a very special Groove Line on January 3rd from 5 to 8 p.m. as we count down the Groove Line's top 40 Beatles songs of all time.
They said it couldn't be done.
Start your new year off right with John, Paul, George, and Ringo right here on 1240 WOON.
They say it shouldn't be done.
That's Saturday, January 3rd from 5 to 8 p.m. live. See you there.
Top 40 Beatles Countdown.
The Top 40 Beatles Countdown.
The Top 40 Beatles Countdown. Don't miss this extravaganza.
ON Radio, ON Worldwide.
And we wanted to just quickly remind you of some of the charities Ben and I have adopted, mostly veterans charities. Certainly, BuildersHelpingHeroes.org. Check that out. It's a local as in Rhode Island, a charity run by the Rhode Island Builders Association, and they give contracting assistance, including new construction, to our heroic veterans and their families of those who have lost loved ones in the War on Terror, and they do great stuff. So BuildersHelpingHeroes.org. Also, you want to check out the Canadian Veterans Advocacy for our listeners up north and our good friends. And that's Mike Blaze in Ontario has started a great group to advocate legally, etc., and legislatively for Canada's veterans as well. And certainly USACares.org. I know that the lady we were talking about in San Diego is very much involved in them, and we like to support them, as well as YouthMentoring.org, Youth Mentoring Connection in Los Angeles, doing great stuff for young people out there, at-risk young people using ancient wisdom. And again, nothing weird, nothing occult about it, but good old down-home sense from our remote ancestors, and doing great stuff out there. So check that out, youthmentoring.org. So let's get back to our discussion with Roland Comtois, Woonsocket favorite son and native. So tell us about where does your work take you geographically?
Well, I have spoken all over the world, and next year I'll be speaking in Italy, in Gubbio, Italy, on October 2nd of 2015, and I travel across the country, and I talk with people all over the world through my radio show and all kinds of things. I have all kinds of conversations with people about these things.
One of the just put your hand up, Ben, when you're ready, because I don't want to hot conversation.
It's understandable. It takes a while for me to form thoughts.
Okay, well, all right. You're all used up. Just got out of college.
That's true.
Anyway, one of the issues that I look at and one of the things that got me in trouble in the seminary was that neither the Roman Catholic, the Orthodox churches are a little bit lighter on this, but generally Christians don't accept mediumistic abilities, or at least they don't trust them. Psychic abilities, this kind of thing. Very, very serious kind of thing. And they certainly don't accept the idea of reincarnation.
Yes.
How do you deal with? I'm not asking about your own religious beliefs, but unless you want to talk about them.
Yeah, sure.
But you must run into that, and you must run into many people who have who consider themselves Roman Catholics or whatever.
Yes.
But how does all that pay
You know,
off?
what's amazing to me is that my audiences are probably filled with more Catholics than anybody else.
Right.
And they're seeking, just like everyone else is seeking, to find some peace. But there have been moments where people have just been, fighting the idea that it's possible. I remember once some woman left me a message on my business phone and said that I was the Jesus hater because of what I do here. But I believe, and I keep using the word love because this is how I operate. It's what I think. It's what I feel, and I believe in that experience. And I know that. My faith tells me that God is about love, or that universe is about love, or angelic spiritual energy, the divinity, whatever you want to call it. To me, it is all about the essence and the energy of love. And that is what I talk about. It's what I feel. It's what I experience. It's what I talk about all the time. And so I say to people, I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to believe yourself. I'm asking you to go inside yourself and make a decision. And if you make a decision at the end of our conversation and you say to yourself, this guy is a nut, I don't believe him, I'm not going to buy into it, perfect. But if you do believe in it, fine. I mean, either way, it's okay. Often I direct them to Corinthians 12:4 and hoping that they realize that everybody has a gift. Everybody has a connection. There's not one religious book that says one person has the gift, and you're the guy that you probably know this more than I do, but not one person has the gift. We all have something. This happens to be my something in the big scheme of things.
Okay. Just that was more of a political question. How do you deal with that kind of thing? There are criticisms of psychic mediums, particularly John Edward, who had still the same publicist as we had.
Yeah.
And you still do. She gets around. There were often criticisms of him and others who do that in public, that they're doing cold readings.
Yes.
Or they look at people beforehand and they're just reading body language and they ask questions that leave. What do you say to that? I know you can't answer for others.
Sure. I can tell you what happens when I'm there. I can only speak from my perspective, and that is I walk into a room, I share the stories I share, and I'm not looking for anything. I'm not looking for anything from the audience. I'm telling what I see, what I feel, what's intuitively inside of me, and I'm passing along that information. Now, do I want people to cry at my events? Yes, I want them to cry. I want them to release their energy. I walk into Target, people start crying. I mean, you know what I mean? People have an emotion.
Prices aren't that bad.
People have an emotional reaction to the experience. You can't hide that. But do we use that as a way to extract information from the person sitting there? I see it as an opportunity for that person to let go of whatever it is that they're bound by, that suffering or that grief.
So it's kind of like you're a paranormal psychologist.
You got it.
All right.
Really, I want that person to release whatever it is. I really am about living the best life you can live right here, right now. I'm all about that, and I believe in all these multiple layers, all these dimensions of energy, these places that exist. But we got to live here.
Yes, well put.
And to live here, we can't live here with a broken heart or a sad something and not move forward. I remember meeting a woman once. She had missed her husband for 25 years and hadn't moved forward, didn't do anything, didn't seek help. She had a few moments in a group setting, and whatever I said to her gave her a moment to breathe. And she took a step forward in her life. She took a step forward from whatever it was that she was feeling. So maybe there are people that extract information. I'm all about wanting you to have the emotional response, the experience of really healing referring to the balancing of your energy so that you can live the best life you can live. May I say one other thing, Chip?
Sure.
I've never heard in my head, I've never heard a spirit say, be depressed, stay in bed, don't get up, don't get out, don't move. It's all about living the best life. And that's what this is about for me.
One of the issues, because you have to forgive me, I majored in philosophy, so I think of these weird, canted views on things. Reincarnation. What is your view on reincarnation?
I think some of us are coming back. I think that we are all traveling these. I really believe too in the multiple layers, that everything is happening at once.
Yeah.
We're all moving forward, and that we may come back. I don't know if I'm coming back here, but I know that I'm going to live on. Is that reincarnation? If I'm moving to another dimension or another place, is that reincarnation?
As we were talking about. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
So I believe in reincarnation.
Yeah. In that sense, because you're already there.
Yes.
That's a hard concept for the modern Western mind
Sure.
or the modern mind in general to sort of grasp, because we're very, well, we call it the island theory. We're very much, it's us, it's all inside of us. Whereas now, I mean, certainly physics is indicating about non-locality,
yes,
and memory and imagination. Everything is shared, which makes what you're doing, I suppose, make more sense.
Well, wouldn't that make sense if I'm getting a message about someone's loved one that is in detail for them, right? Wouldn't that fit with your philosophy here, that maybe this is really happening? Another interesting aspect is that I pre-record messages on big purple papers. I didn't bring them in with me. They're in my car. I take them wherever I go. It says Ray Gillette wants to talk to his family about something. It says Mrs. LaFrancois on a paper. And those messages then are presented to the audience. They didn't say anything to me. I walk up to someone and say, I think you need this paper. Turns out that it's exactly what they needed, or a message that they needed. Is it happening on those multiple layers that you refer to? Is that how that is happening? I mean,
there seem to be certain ones where people are aware of their super selves, or greater selves, which includes all their loved ones and people they don't like and all this sort of thing. Speaking of pieces of paper, Roland, do you ever have? And I'll tell you why I asked this, but do you ever have physical manifestations, things appearing, things disappearing, such as pieces of paper, which actually might be, for lack of a better term, messages?
Well, I've never had that happen to me, but there was an interesting experience that a woman at an event had happened. She received a purple paper message that said something about, I should have given you the ring, and there was a description of a ring, a beautiful diamond ring, and the rest of the message about how they weren't able to finish their lives together. I walk into an audience and I say to this woman, I have a really strong feeling that this message belongs to you, and instead of negotiating that feeling, I'm going to give you the purple paper. She looks at the purple paper and she starts to cry. She starts sobbing in the audience. She tells me after the event that her little granddaughter gave her a jewelry box, a little ring box, and in the ring box was a brooch. This beautiful brooch that was left by the man she loved that had passed away. She gave the box to her daughter. Several days later, the daughter gave the box back to this woman and back to her mother and said, you forgot something in there. And inside that little ring box was a diamond ring that this woman did not see when she opened up the package. She takes the diamond ring that she has, compared it to the ring that I had drawn, and they were exactly the same. How do you explain that?
Yeah.
How do you explain that?
Yeah.
How do you explain that moment? I mean, it certainly is very powerful that message needed to come through to her. And it was the manifestation of the ring. Did the ring manifest in the box? That's the question. Did the paper manifest before the ring came? I mean, there's so many aspects to look at that and why that happened. All I know, the end result was that woman who received the paper and the ring had this amazing sense of relief and began to realize that maybe there's more. Maybe there's something more beyond me. Maybe there's some reason for me to go on. Maybe there's some reason. Maybe we still are connected somehow together. And I think that's what that paper gave that woman. However that ring got there, I don't know.
People asked us how we dealt with. Well, it was almost funny. I'm given the circumstances, but for years we're on the air giving suggestions about how to deal with the quote loss of a loved one, which of course is nothing of the kind. And then my mother translated. There's 95 years old, like the one lady you were describing. And then people wrote in, so many words like, okay, wise guy, how do you deal with, So I said, in our attitude, she has, she's not, it's not like she's still here, but we are with her in many parallel worlds where she never died, and it's all us.
Yes.
And that's a very real and positive experience.
Before we burn up the hour, would you like to talk about your books and website
good
and
idea.
such?
We're burning up the hour.
Thank you. Yes, my first book is "And Then There Was Heaven: A Journey of Hope and Love." It's a spiritual memoir.
I gotcha.
Those who are watching on the internet, they have the upsetting experience of actually seeing us. So we'll hold up the.
So this is a spiritual memoir. It's my journey of discovering these spiritual messages in my life, and I've told the story from my 10 years old to 1993. And the second book is called 16 Minutes, and it's actually about my mother's passing and her physically dying and the journey that came thereafter, and that's that story. Included in this book is a grief guidebook helping people to work through their grief, because I think that's really an important aspect of my work, and that's what that book is about. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Excellent. And your website?
My website is rolandcomtois.net.
Okay. And there are some possibilities you can't talk about right now.
Yeah, right. I'm in the midst of some television things and some new books coming out in the near future. So there's a lot of exciting
posted
things
on that.
Yes,
I'll have you back. This is a lot of fun. I didn't know what to expect, but this is good. Okay, what is heaven? That's another term everybody throws around.
Well, everyone believes that it's up there. It's across the street. It's up somewhere beyond our grasp.
Sky gods. How's that weird?
Everyone thinks it's beyond us, but it's part of us, just as everything else is, right? So when I talk about heaven, I say to my audience, I said, it's not upstairs, it's not across the street, it's right here. It's here in you. It's in your field. It's in your space somewhere. It's here. And if it's here, so are your loved ones, so are your memories, so is the journey, so is life. It's all here. So, I don't think of it as just a place. I think of it as an experience.
Yeah, I like that.
As a place of being.
Exactly. When and I'm thinking of, that actually came from research on horses, of all things, but it's found that when beings of carbon-based nature, like ourselves or horses or whatever, are in close proximity, there's a bioelectric field around the body. Sometimes, I guess, people who are into that sort of thing call it the aura.
Yes.
Right? And when they touch, that's when a lot of these feelings can be exchanged.
Yes.
And there's a sort of thing. How do you see it that way too?
Well, I do. I think that we all have this kind of energy field around us called the aura, and I think that it's palpable to those people that are sensitive to that kind of thing. So when I'm looking at you, I have a sense about that. I can feel your energy as I do his. So yeah, I'm certainly aware of that. And they have all kinds of cameras now that can take photographs of those kinds of things, and
I've heard of that.
Well, the curling. There's some controversy about that, but
there
is.
I mean,
and oddly enough, every object seems to have one.
Yes.
So the natives weren't kidding when they said everything's got a spirit, quote unquote.
Well, everything has energy.
Well,
everything is moving.
Yeah.
Nothing is still. So if it's
that's
moving,
the nuclear nature of everything.
right? So it must exude something.
Sure.
So and people that are sensitive to that can see it. Mm-hmm. Some people can feel it. Some people are experience it on different levels.
Yep. Well, again, so much for the island theory.
Yeah.
What is your experience with suicides?
That's
as in
a big
people
question.
who have committed.
That's a big question, and in all the years that I've been doing this, and I've been doing this for a very long time, and I write about one particular story in my first book of a woman whose son that committed suicide. Often I found that the hell, if you will, that they were living was here in this physical life experience. I've not seen someone who has committed suicide live in a dark, ugly place. I've discovered that their dark, ugly place was here. Whatever they were experiencing, their thoughts, their grief, their sorrows. I don't know if they just are living in some dark place beyond here. I've not seen that so clearly.
That's an interesting point. That's not exactly what my experience has been.
Sure.
I can't say dark place.
Yep.
I can say place of utter aloneness.
No, I'm not going to disagree with you on that.
I'm
not going to disagree with you. I'm telling you, and my perspective is that when someone commits suicide, again, like everything else, we don't just pop up into heaven because that's the story.
Well, that's the next thing, yeah.
We don't. We have to go through a process of evolution or healing. You know, if you believe that we have to heal these aspects of who we are or these layers of who we are, that has to happen. It does not happen just because your body dies. Something else has to take place.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that sense of aloneness, I call it the healing sanctuary. You call it being alone. I call it a place where we go and heal something.
Well, most of the ones I've run into aren't too happy about it. Yeah. But you know, you make your, as we would put it, you make your own bed in the multiverse.
I think the big thing here is context. How we contextualize what we experience and express to others. Now, you're approaching Monsieur Comtois from a different perspective than us, from where I'm coming from at least, and where my father is also coming from in some way, shape, or form. It's how we perceive what we experience may not exactly be what we're perceiving. We're perceiving things that are beyond us.
Sure.
And we explain them in ways that we can understand.
Absolutely.
And we explain it from our own framework. And our framework is very narrow because we're humans and flawed creatures that like to think we understand things that we really don't. Now, understanding the fact that we don't understand is the key here.
Yes.
So, how do you deal with not being able to understand something that you think you understand, but you might understand it?
Well, I don't fight with it. I don't argue with it. I do what I can to learn the best that I can from that experience. So, you know, I can't fight it. You know, I listen to you, and I listen to your perspective, and I listen to what I understand, and I make my decisions and based on that experience, right? Truth isn't because I've said it or because you've said it. It's because we've experienced something inside, and it ignited an energy within us or something within us that allowed us to feel where we are in that moment.
But is it all about feeling?
And that's a good question. You know, I think I operate from a place. You know, now that you mention that, I operate from a place of feeling. It certainly is where I live, if you will. So that's how I verbalize what I'm experiencing solely from my feelings. That's a good question, actually. I don't have a clear answer other than I operate from that place. I operate from that place.
But feeling out truth is one thing.
Yeah.
But are you feeling out truth?
I'm feeling out the truth as I'm living it here in this moment. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm making that decision by learning from you guys and experiencing what I'm experiencing and making it right here in this moment. Will that change? It may change if I discover something new, if I discover another way of looking at something or understanding it in a new perspective. I think that changes all the time. I think it changes all the time.
That's a measure of intelligence in my book.
I think that changes.
When you get better information, you're big enough to change your opinion, or
exactly.
at least look at things in a different way.
You know, it took some time for me to understand the multiple layers or the many dimensions until I had some of my own personal discoveries about that, until I read certain things, heard certain things, and then I came to understand that this whole journey is this whole experience, this life experience is much bigger than what we can possibly imagine in this particular moment. And I'm learning and experiencing it as I go along.
And this is a big question in the evening. When you have given information to someone or believe you've passed information on from a loved one or something, have you ever found it to be wrong or inaccurate or even destructive without you meaning to have it?
Yeah, I've never heard it to be destructive, you know. Has someone said, you know, that doesn't feel right to me? And I said, fine. Then it's not right. If it doesn't feel right to you, it's not right. I'll never forget this woman calling me, telling me at an event, you know, it doesn't feel right. I don't think it's right. It doesn't do anything for me. I said, fine. It's okay. You know, 3-4 weeks later, she writes me and says, you know what? I sat with what you said and came to some of my own understanding. And it meant something to me. Maybe not as deeply as you would like it to be, but it meant something to me. You know, so, yes, anybody can make a mistake, I imagine. And all I know is that when I'm there, and back to the feeling of love, because that's what I talk about the most, if I'm holding that energy within myself, then I'm doing the best that I can in that particular moment for that person.
See, when you say the feeling of love, I think what I hear you saying is coming out of yourself and uniting
Yes.
with someone who you really are one with anyway.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
I believe in that oneness.
Yeah.
I believe that we are all connected somehow, and that connection allows us to have this inner conversation, whether it's from your loved one or with each other here.
Mm-hmm.
There's some communication going on somehow, and those of us that are sensitive to that energy are always working on that communication. Whether you're clairvoyant or sitting here having a verbal conversation, something's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still a big wall in modern thinking, in my opinion, about this. It's still approaching things from an individualist point of view. Here in America, we're rabid individualists.
Island theory.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if there's something's going on, it's like, well, if there's nothing in it for me, then why bother? It's very depressing, but it's the symptom of modern life. So how do we break out of that individualist mold if we are indeed entirely self-contained individuals that go on forever? How do we move on from that?
That is an amazing question, actually. And what happens in the audiences of people that I see? This is where the answer is. It's in that one person who takes a Kleenex and hands it to the next guy. It's that one person who stretches across the table and says, "You're not in this alone," to a stranger. Somehow, in that moment, when they're vulnerable, when they are feeling fragile, it gives them the opportunity to really to go beyond themselves. I've seen it time and time again, Ben, when someone is sobbing in an audience and a stranger comes across the room and puts their arms around them. That is where the power is. In that moment, it gives the person who's offering that support maybe the courage to help the next person, and then the next person is supported, and so forth and so on. So something very absolutely amazing happens.
Well, very often we'll have conversations like this with people who do what you do. Not very often, but somebody.
Occasionally, I guess.
And I'll hear the rabid individualism that Ben's talking about, or I'll hear warm, fuzzy, maudlin, kind of sappy stuff. But I'm not hearing that tonight. Rather to my surprise. So that's just, I don't know. What about, I can't speak for Ben, but I'm hearing something bigger than the individual here. Me, anyway.
There's something that happens. There's something that happens there. There's something that happens in that room. They come in, just as you said. They come in and they say, "I want a message now. I want you to tell me something. I want you to give me what I need."
Mm-hmm.
And it's about me. And then something happens during the experience. They start to change because they realize that it's not that there's somebody else around who's having the same kind of grief and sorrow that they're having, and they change. Something happens to them. It's powerful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's powerful to witness, because I almost feel hopeful, not for the human race, but hopeful for humanity that we can go beyond ourselves, truly, and be a light for each other, a support for each other, or kind to each other, or something.
Now, we're almost out of time, but just very quickly, the issue of consequences. If somebody goes into, we've seen all too many of the. Well, one example is too many, but we've seen a lot of examples of people going in public places and just opening fires.
Yes.
Horrifying things that just are not human to do. Sort of selfishness and individualism gone haywire, really.
Yes.
In its ultimate expression. When these people die, many of them do right then and there.
Yes.
There must be. I have trouble with the idea that there are no consequences made by themselves, kind of making their own bed. I mean, what say you?
I'm not the guy that believes just because you die, you enter this beautiful heavenly kingdom.
Sure.
I think there are consequences, and I think things have to heal. I talk about that. Things have to get healed, and however that happens, it happens.
Okay. Roland, it's been a very interesting conversation.
Thank
Tell
you.
us once again your books and your website.
My website is rolandcomtois.net, and my first book is And Then There Was Heaven, and then 16 Minutes.
Okay, very good. What are you working on now?
We're working on other books and other stories and certainly all kinds of fun things. All kinds of fun things.
All
Thank
right,
you.
good. Well, we'll move on to our announcements. Thank you, Roland,
Thank
for
you.
coming all the way from the old country to be here. All right.
Alrighty, so you can visit our show website, behindtheparanormal.com, where you can find nearly 600 free podcasts of past shows on both ON 1240 and the Eno's 4.5-year run on CBS Radio, along with special shows and podcasts. That's about all the time we have, so jump right to the quote.
Okay, right to the quote. We'll leave you with this evening with a practical thought from Ben's second favorite philosopher, Aristotle. Bring your desires down to your present means. Increase them only when your increased means permit. Oh, gosh. I'm Paul Eno, wishing everyone a happy Hanukkah, which began last Wednesday, so we're late, and a Merry Christmas, which begins Thursday.
I am Ben Eno, and that was... I do not like Aristotle. Anyway, thanks for joining us on our great cosmic journey. We will see you next time.
Return to this radio frequency 167 hours from now for another edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.